Okay, it spans a period of time over 30 years. I graduated from high school in 1966, and less than a month later, I was hired by AT&T as a craft person, a very lucrative job to me at the time, 17 years old.
Yeah.
You didn't get into a company like that very easy. And I started at 32 Avenue of the Americas, which is at 6th Avenue in Manhattan. And sometime early 67, late 67, I don't remember exactly, I was moved up to 811 10th Avenue, which is at 53rd Street. And I remained in telegraph. I was craft there until April of 1968 when I was drafted. That was another great thing about AT&T. Few companies were hiring people that appeared that they would be drafted. So I thanked AT&T for that. To this day, I thank them for that. I spent almost 2 years in the Army, was trained and sent to Vietnam. I was wounded when I was in Vietnam, recovered in a hospital in Japan, U.S. Army hospital in Japan, and got sent back to Vietnam to finish out my tour. Foolishly, I took an additional 2 months of time in Vietnam because you could get out of the Army early if you did something like that. Looking back now, it's like, was that ever done? But I did it. January of 1970, I came home in November of 69. January of 1970, I rejoined AT&T at 811 back into telegraph. And I was there until, I don't have exact dates, but it was sometime around 1976, 77. I was transferred into a group we called, had dial 8 services. I was with them until, as craft, until 1978, beginning of 79. I was promoted to first line manager. I don't always think it was the wisest thing for the company to do, but they put me in charge of the people I used to work with. So we kind of all knew each other's, shortcomings, and that's a terrible burden to carry around. But I remained there until divestiture. And at divestiture, we actually went into pre-divestiture in October of 1983, trialing it out. And I was moved up. We had to give so many people to New York Telephone at the time. I think every group went through that. It came down to needing one boss from my group. And for some reason, most people seem to be kicking and screaming about moving to New York Telephone. And I realized the work I was doing was going to New York Tel at divestiture. So I became that volunteer that they were looking for. Probably one of the smartest moves I ever made. In 1985, our group was only 3 of us, one New York Tel person, 2 NYNEX people. We were moved into the World Trade Center, a very unique and, to me, probably the nicest buildings in New York City. About 8 years of my phone company career was in 2 World Trade Center. Fortunately, I was not there either time the catastrophes happened. During that time, of course, divestiture was a constantly changing and growing process. Now, as a quick aside, while this was going on, while I was at Belcor, many regional companies were finding they were top heavy with management. So some had very nice ways of offering retirement incentives to their personnel. Other companies did it not so nicely. At the time, NYNEX New York Tel was one of the groups that were not being so nice. They come up with a system they called banding, which anybody whose job might have been or could have been at risk, everybody had to be banded. If your job was not at risk, of course, you were in this top band, you had nothing to worry about. The middle band, probably not anything major to worry about. Nothing was foreseen at the time. The bottom band, however, you either had to find yourself a new job within the company, or within a certain amount of time, you'd be laid off. I know Jack Cohen speaks of it all the time when these ownership meetings are held on the stock. They have some very fancy wording in there that tries to give high-level company managers maybe a lot more than they deserve. And the average person that I consider myself to be, I don't think I would always recognize what they're doing. So being part of an organization, you always have a little more power than you have on your own. Everybody should join that was a retiree of any of the Bell companies. I think the Belltel Group is probably, I mean, I don't like to brag, but I think it's the best one out there right now.